ワールドストラテジー世界の読み方、山岡鉄秀です。Perhaps we can talk about the changes happening over a period of time on the Japanese studies, the area of study that you have been specializing in. You told me before you went to Japan, you knew almost nothing about Japan. You couldn't remember there's anything whatsoever taught about Japan at your school, right? And then, but then I can see there used to be quite a few faculties and departments that specialize in or majoring in Japanese studies or East Asian studies in the Western universities. Well, the United States and also Australia, those places. Yeah. But again, that part also changed as Japanese economy rose and then peaked out, started declining, sort of thing. And then you have been in the center of the area for a long time. So in your observation, how did Japanese study on Japan change?
Yes, that's a great question. It's very simplistically, I would say, modernization theory ran Japanese studies from the 1950s through the 1980s. But in the 1980s, there was an alternative approach, often centered at Chicago University, where I was. There was anti-modernization theory, and it was introducing more critical approaches that wouldn't just see Japan as a success story because its economy was successful. So those two models were kind of at war in the 1980s and early 1990s. But then Japanese studies got subsumed in the American broader university culture. I'll be very simplistic again. That broader university culture was DEI, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as that began to pick up in the 1990s and 2000s, people were less interested in Japan because they thought Japan was not a diverse society. They thought it was homogeneous. And so they became very negative towards Japan. And what we have today is a lot of universities have stopped offering Japanese studies, and students, some of them are still interested in Japan, but there's all kinds of reasons that they're not studying Japan as a major. One is because foreign language studies is down in America. And that brings down Japanese studies because language is an essential part of it. But the reason language studies is down is because everybody wants to have a high GPA. They're all paying extremely high tuition, and they're worried about post-graduation careers, graduate schools. And so they don't want to take a course like language where they can't necessarily all get A's. It's very hard to give all A's in a language class, right? You give a vocabulary test and they either know it or they don't. So across the country, American college students are avoiding language courses, particularly difficult ones like Japanese. That's another problem we're having. Then on top of that, Japanese studies is a part of the humanities. And the humanities have their own crisis going on. Just last month, in early June, Vanderbilt University chancellors sponsored a research report on the humanities, and it was excoriating. It said the humanities have become so politically correct, focused on social justice, that students don't want to take those courses because they're ideological, they won't help them get a job. And that also hurts Japanese studies because that's part of the humanities program. So language is a problem, humanities is a problem, and the whole general why study Japan, what are we trying to teach is also a problem. Now, there are many students I'm finding at my university who are interested in Japan. Some have been there, some even know the language, but they're not doing Japanese majors for all those reasons I just gave. They may be studying politics, or they may be studying economics, or all kinds of other majors. Interest in Japan. They're just not doing Japanese studies. They're not becoming Japanese majors. So we're broader attack on the humanities, tuition, and the debt these students have and pay this off. And that's driving them into tech, economics, investment banking, all kinds of more lucrative businesses.
I see. In 1980s till somewhere mid 1990s, the learning Japanese language was still popular at the universities because of first of all, economy. I mean, the strong economy that the people wanted to get involved with. And then secondly, the Japanese sort of subcultures, manga, anime type of thing. So that kept the language study just going. But are you saying that that is no longer sort of good enough or strong enough to sustain the Japanese studies in general at universities?
Yeah, I taught anime for a while. And one of the things we found in America was that American students who would take a course on anime, that was it. They wouldn't take another course on Japan because they grew up with anime as children. They don't think of anime as Japanese culture. And so I started teaching it by saying there's something called anime and there's something called anime. And anime is what all these American students were aware of. And it was what they learned in America. But there's a broader field out there called anime. And it's much bigger than what the Americans import and consume. And they weren't interested in that. And they weren't interested in taking another course on Japan. So I don't think the interest in anime has helped us keep alive Japanese studies.
I see. Well, let me ask you the final question to you. So in 1970s and then 80s and so on, I mean, the Japanese economy was rising. And that attracted a lot of criticism, including from the countries, including the United States. And at that time, there's the very particular term often quoted, that was Japan bashing. Whereas that
Japan
word,
bashing, yes.
Yeah, that word somehow disappeared. And then another term was more frequently quoted, which was Japan passing. So no longer important. So just passing through. Yeah. So well, as you said, Japan is still popular for tourists, attracting a lot of tourists. As you said, there are a lot to offer in Japan. Yeah, including the cafe in the corner, whatever, there are certainly the very unique, sophisticated the culture stuff that Japan can offer to all the foreign visitors. But as a whole nation, so still, seemingly not as vital as before. So then my last question for you is under the changing circumstances, particularly the security situations and so on, and also or the increasingly unpredictable U.S. The policies and so on, and also world situations, including wars still happening, still going on. How can we make Japan matter again? In your opinion, you told us about the Takaichi administration and then the younger people who supporting her type of thing, the changes happening in Japan. But as a whole, how can we make Japan matter again, do you think?
It's a great question and something very close to my whole ikigai, my whole purpose in life. This is what I want to do.
Okay.
First of all, I don't think Japan is as irrelevant as some left-wing academics say. The whole idea of Japan passing. I think this comes out of a Sino-China-centric strategic studies area.
Okay.
And they wanted to say Japan's irrelevant because China's rising. And these are the kind of people who can only think of one country in East Asia at a time. So in the 1980s, it was Japan. Then it was China. The fact of the matter is, most Americans, both Democrats and Republicans, like Japan. Japan has tremendous cultural cachet. That's why it's the #1 tourist destination. And it's true, Democrats like Japan, Republicans like Japan. Academics tend not to because they tend to be not Democrats. The big problem in America, as you probably know, is the rise of communism, socialist communism. They're taking over New York and taking over various other elections, including Washington, D.C. These people who call themselves democratic socialists, but they're really communists, they're going to side with China. They're not going to like Japan. But mainstream Democrats and they go to Japan and they enjoy Japan. They enjoy the Japanese people. By the way, I'm a big soccer fan. I was really happy to see how many Americans were supporting the Japanese World Cup team. Everybody likes the Japanese soccer team. They like the Japanese visitors. We had reports on media about how the Japanese were here and they were eating big beef and enjoying America. And the Americans were responding to that saying, yeah, we love you too. So there is a tremendous swelling of approval, of appreciation. Basically, they like the Japanese people, most Americans. What I'm more worried about is the rise of this socialist communist factor in America that would prefer to align with China and would really try to erase Japan. Right now, they're marginal, they're small, but they seem to have a lot of enthusiasm from the young people. And I don't know how that's going to affect this. But Japan has done fairly well under the established Democratic Party and under the Republican Party. And most American people like Japan. It's just the academics that are a problem. Those are the people that I know best, of course.
Well, thank you very much, Doc Sensei. It's getting quite late in your time. And it's a real privilege to speak to you. And then thank you very much to share your insights with our Japanese audience. That was eye-opening. Thank you very much. And then I hope to speak to you soon again.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I don't know if we froze up again.
In the very end, yes, it frozen up. Would you like to say something to just closing?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity and say that I always enjoy and you make me think. And I hope that your difficult questions haven't embarrassed me. But at any rate, I have great faith in the Japanese-American relationship. And I think the future is going to be bright for these two countries.
Great. Beautiful. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
Taking time for us. Thank you very much, Doc Sensei.
My pleasure.
See you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Appreciate it. Okay. Bye-bye.
皆様いかがだったでしょうか。ドーク先生のご洞察、我々日本人のものとはかなり違う視点からお話になられていて、興味深い点がいくつもありました。例えば、我々は往々にして戦前と戦後を完全に分けて考えがちですけれども、ドーク先生曰く、実は1860年から1960年までのこの100年間、その間、明治維新から数々の大戦争を経てるわけですけれども、実は日本人はそんなに変わっていないんだと。むしろ1960年代からの経済的な復興、スーパーパワーの仲間入り、このあたりが日本人のメンタリティを大きく変えていったんだというご指摘、大変興味深かったですね。そして今日の日本をどうやってですね、もう一度世界の関心事にしていくのか、どのような希望が見出せるのか、大変興味深いお話を伺いました。インタビューの中で私から、いわゆるウォーギルトインフォメーションプログラムですね、日本人にこの罪悪感を持たせるという、それについてもご質問しました。ドーク先生のお答えは、 当時ですね、この戦後、あまりにも悲惨な思いをした日本人にとって、この平和主義という名のですね、この無抵抗主義は非常に受け入れやすいものがあったことは事実であると。しかし、この平和主義ですね、自己防衛のための武器すら持たない、国防のための戦争も放棄するといったような、極端な平和主義というもの、これがですね、結果として今日の日本の立ち位置を非常に危険なものにしているというこの現実、そしてですね、この現在の60歳以上、特に70歳以上の世代、そのような平和教育にどっぷりと使って、なおかつ日本の未曾有の経済的繁栄を経験してきた、堪能してきた世代は、依然としてですね、その空想的平和主義の中に浸っていると。一方で、この若い世代はですね、逆にそのバブルのような時代は全く知らないわけなんですよね。で、そういった若い世代はよりプラグマティックな現実的な安全保障ということも考えるようになった。で、その若い世代が高市政権をより強く支持しているというような現象があるというお話でした。ですから、このドーク先生がおっしゃるようにですね、確かにこのウォーゲルト・インフォーメーション・プログラムのようなもののインパクトは大きかったんですけれども、しかし、その世代が経済的繁栄を堪能したという、その側面が非常に大きかったということ。その平和主義に基づいて、この平和を謳歌できたんだから、それでいいじゃないかというですね、そういう形で自己完結しているということなんですよね。それが一つの時代の象徴でありですね、また日本の脆弱性の根源でもあるというご指摘でした。それを果たして若い世代で変えていけるのかどうかということですよね。かつてジャパンバッシングという言葉がありました。これは日本の経済が非常に強くて、これ脅威になった時代ですよね。あの頃、まさに24時間戦えますかという CM のコピーがあり、日本のサラリーマンはですね、まさに企業戦士として栄養ドリンクを飲みながら24時間戦い続けて、そして本当に過労死という名の戦死をしていった。そのような、ある種のこの戦争状態の継続による経済的発展だったという側面があるわけなんですね。その驚異的な経済発展、そのような犠牲に支えられた経済的発展が、諸外国、特にアメリカから見れば大きな脅威に移ったわけですね。戦争で完全に破壊したはずの日本人が今度は経済で戦争を仕掛けてきているんじゃないかと、アメリカの安全保障を脅かしているんじゃないかと、いうことで、その日本経済弱体化ということに取り組んでいくわけですね。ですから、その経済の発展と、そしてこの没落というところが実はですね、この日本の戦後において一番大きなターニングポイントであったとも言えるというご指摘でした。そしてもう一点、大変興味深かったのが、このマッカーサーですね、当時日本をキリスト教の国にしたかったんですね。これあんまり知られてないですけども、膨大な数の聖書を輸入して日本をキリスト教の国にしようとしました。実はこの明治維新以降もですね、それまでの鎖国状態からですね、一転してキリスト教の流入ということがあったんですけれども、それをはるかに上回るスケールで日本のキリスト教化ということが、試みられたと。しかしそれは失敗に終わったということだったんですね。ここにこの日本人の表面的にはいくら変わっても変わらない部分っていうのがあるんだということでした。その時代のですね、このマッカーサーの努力の一つのレガシーが国際キリスト教大学であると。実は日本にはすでにですね、いくつもの優れたキリスト教の大学があったわけですけれども、マッカーサーとしてはその非常にアメリカ的なものを作りたかったということですね。それを象徴しているのが今日残っている ICU だというお話もございました。また、マッカーサーが靖国神社を破壊しようと思った時にですね、実はそれを止めたのが この、カトリックのですね、ドイツから派遣された、ジョージ大学のですね、神父だったと、そういう話もございました。数々のですね、大変興味深いお話を伺いました。皆さんいかがだったでしょうか。今後もですね、引き続き海外の識者の皆さんから、なかなか我々日本人が気づかない点をですね、ご指摘していただきたいと思っております。どうぞお楽しみに。最後までご視聴ありがとうございました。いいねボタン、ハイプボタン、そしてチャンネル登録をよろしくお願いいたします。また皆さんの意見をコメント欄にお寄せください。お待ちしております。ワールドストラテジー、世界の読み方、山岡鉄秀でした。